G'day golfers! Well, today's video is about how to spin your wedges. What a great weapon to have in your bag, to have the ability to attack those tight pins, to be able to get the ball to stop on those firm greens, and control your distances with your approach shots. Today we're going to talk about the conditions that you're going to face out in the golf course that affect those spin rates, the equipment that you need to use, and of course the technique that you need to impart the maximum spin on those wedge shots. I'm Glen Haynes. Welcome to Aussie Golf Pros. So here are the sort of situations that you might find yourself in out in the golf course. We've got a 60-metre shot over a bunker. I'm in the semi-rough, the ball's sitting down a little bit. It's not terrible, but it's sitting down a little bit. But the big factor that's really going to make it difficult to get the ball to stop is the fact that the green's tilted away from us. It's downhill. So all of these factors are stacked against us when we're trying to stop the golf ball. So the first step here is to realise that the ball is going to roll. So we've got to try to land it short of the flag. Obviously we can't land it too short because the bunker's there. But if there's no bunker there, then definitely landing it short of the green and letting it bounce on from this type of lie makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I want you to consider is, what were you doing here? It's course management is a real good aspect of getting the ball to stop quickly and attack those tight pins. So if you've laid up to this position and left yourself 50 or 60 yards into the hole, then that's poor management if you need that ball to stop quickly. You're better off taking a couple of clubs shorter and leaving yourself sort of 80 yards so you can generate more spin from there, and if you can, get it on the fairway, because the lie has a big impact on how much spin you're going to generate. What's going to happen here is I'm going to get some grass trapped between the club and the ball, and that's going to reduce the friction. It's going to reduce the spin that I'm imparting on the golf ball. Whereas from a tight lie on the fairway, I can get better contact with the ball and therefore impart more spin. But anyway, we're here now, so we're going to have a go. It's about a 3/4 sand wedge. I've got a 58-degree sand wedge here. So I got over the bunker, and then it's kicked on, run over the green. So that's typical. Now, the other thing that I did there is I was using a hard golf ball. We'll get into equipment in a minute. And I was using an older wedge. But the conditions really made that difficult for us to get the golf ball to stop. Some grass trapped between the club and the ball, and that's going to reduce the friction. So you see how important it is when you're thinking about your layup shots as to what sort of shot you're going to leave for your approach shot. We're on the same hole, but a completely different shot here, a much easier shot. I'm further back, I've got 85 metres to go, and this time I'm in the fairway, so I've got a tighter lie, and I'm going to be able to control that spin much more easily. The other thing here is, by being further back, I can generate more clubhead speed through impact, and therefore impart more spin. So I can be much more aggressive. And let's see how much stoppage we can get on this green. Just to the right of the pin. And then we can see much more spin into it. Still landing on the downslope there, but because we've imparted more spin, we've got more speed through impact, and we've got more friction between the club and the ball because we're on the fairway, and then we're imparting much more spin. So the conditions do have a huge impact on how much spin we can generate on the golf ball and what the ball's going to do when it hits the green. But that's not the only factor. So on to the equipment difference with those two golf shots. So the first one, let's start with the golf ball. I used a Strixon distance golf ball. It's a hard golf ball, two-piece. I don't think they even make them anymore. There are lots of two-piece hard golf balls out there that are built for distance. And you can even hear the difference between a hard golf ball and a soft golf ball. The second ball I used was a Strixon Z-Star XV, which is a tour ball. It's got a thinner, softer cover, and we can definitely impart a lot more spin on the tour ball. So here's the rock, as we call them, and you can hear it on the face there. It's very hard. Go to a softer ball, a lot duller sound. There's the harder ball, very high pitched, and then a lot softer cover on the Strixon Z-Star XV. Now, there are plenty of great tour balls out there that you can use that you can impart a lot of spin on, but obviously they're more expensive. And it used to be the case that you either went with the softer tour ball that spun a lot but didn't go as far, or you used the hard two-piece ball that went further but didn't spin as much. That's not so much the case anymore. There are plenty of good soft balls out on the market that aren't particularly expensive. Strixon do the Ulti-Soft ball, which is a low compression, soft cover golf ball, so you can achieve plenty of spin with that. Titleist do the Tour Soft. Callaway do some soft golf balls, and I'm sure TaylorMade and some other manufacturers do as well. There are plenty of affordable soft golf balls out there. In fact, I don't really see the benefit in using a hard two-piece ball anymore. So you're not gaining much distance with it, and you're definitely losing some control into the greens and the ability to spin. So that's the cover. It's not just the softness of the cover, but also how thick it is. So the tour balls do have a thinner cover, so you can impart more spin. So that's the balls. Let's have a look at the club difference now. So first up, I used an old Titleist Vokey wedge. It's a 58 degree. But if we have a look here, we can see that it's worn. I've got some dirt and grass and some moisture there. All of those things are going to reduce the amount of spin imparted on the ball because we're not getting as much friction, not as much purchase. But the real big difference that a lot of people don't realize is the milling. So Vokey wedges and Cleveland wedges and a lot of other good wedges have milled faces. They have these little lines in them, but after a while they wear out. Now, this is many years old, so that's clearly worn out, and you can see there that there's nothing left of the milling. So not a lot of purchase on the golf ball, not a lot of spin. The second shot I hit there was a fairly new Cleveland RTX Zip Core wedge. It's 56 degrees of loft, so a couple of degrees less loft. But here's the big difference here. We've got sharper grooves, newer grooves, and we've got that milling in the face there that hasn't been worn out yet. It's only been hit a few times, this club. So that really helps us to impart a lot more spin on the shot. So you have control over these things. You can use a softer golf ball, you can use a newer wedge, obviously cost involved, but if you want to impart maximum spin on your wedge shots, then the newer wedges definitely are going to stand you in good stead. Let's get into technique now. So the amount of spin imparted on the golf ball is basically an equation. We've talked about the different factors with grass, moisture, and equipment, but when talking about technique, basically it comes down to three things. The speed that we're generating through impact, the angle of approach into the golf ball, and the amount of loft that we're using. So there's been a lot of talk about if you need to impart spin, you should hit down on it more. But all that means is that you're going to de-loft the club and the ball's going to come out lower. Yes, you're still going to impart spin, but you're going to get that hop forward first, and you might not always want that. So we definitely want to focus on good contact. So that shaft angle is important. We don't want to try to get the shaft vertical or behind here because we're going to possibly hit that grass first. Yes, we'll get plenty of height, but if we catch any grass first, then we're going to reduce the friction that we impart on the golf ball. So we definitely want to have the shaft slightly forward at impact to make sure we get good contact. That's really key. And we've got to make sure that we're using plenty of loft. You're not going to achieve as much spin with a pitching wedge as you would with a sand wedge. It's that equation that I talked about. So if you're reducing the amount of loft into the shot, then you're not going to impart as much spin. And as I said before, you're definitely looking for as much speed as you can achieve by being nice and soft through impact. That's the real key here, soft hands so that we can get that whoosh happening through impact. If we can generate plenty of speed there, then we can impart a lot more spin on the shot. Now you might say, well, you're going to hit it too far. Well, then use more loft. Obviously, if we can do that, we're going to impart even more spin on the golf shot. Keep the ball middle to maybe even slightly forward of middle. And the real key here is to see if you can hit the grass just after the golf ball. A lot of golfers with wedge in their hands try to get underneath the ball to try to help it up in the air, and you're going to catch the grass first if you do that. So we definitely want to catch the grass after the ball. So that means transferring your weight and turning through just like you would with your driver shot or your 5-iron shot. All of these things have to happen normally. Now, the one piece of technical advice that we really need to take heed of to help us with our contact is the shaft plane. What we want is that shaft to be nice and shallow into the downswing here. If we get steep here, that means that the toe is going to dig into the ground, and that's going to compromise our contact. The best thing that we can focus on here is trying to get really crisp contact, and that's what imparts the most spin on the shots. If we get that shaft vertical, then that's going to be compromised. If your club isn't flat on the ground at impact, then that is going to reduce the amount of spin you can achieve. So we definitely want to be shallowing that club, getting that shaft nice and low in the downswing so the shaft is pointing at the ball, or maybe even a point just outside the golf ball, and that's going to help us to get that club flatter on the ground and impart the most spin. Let's have a go. Oh, really crisp. And I managed to even get that to come back a little bit, despite the fact that it's into that downslope. So what we saw there was the divot was after the golf ball. Check. We got that shaft nice and shallow, and we can see that the divot is nice and flat. So we're getting the maximum amount of contact and friction with the golf ball so that we can maximize our spin into the golf shot. Let's see how much spin we can achieve with ideal conditions. So I have a good lie in the fairway, nice tight grass, so that's going to help me achieve the most spin. I've got a softish green tilted towards me, so we should be able to get that ball to jack up a little bit. No wind to speak of. If it was downwind, then that would knock the ball out of the sky and the ball would come into the green at a shallower angle, so I wouldn't achieve as much backspin that way. But I don't have to worry about wind today. I'm going to just hit a little bit of fade on this, just to add a little bit more stoppage, a little bit more spin. The important thing here is I've got a nice, clean, dry club. My grooves are clean. All I need now is good contact. Felt pretty good. And back it comes. Probably too much spin for that spot. And that's what we need to achieve here, is the right landing point depending on how much spin we're expecting. So spin isn't always a good thing. If I'm hitting into a back pin and I've got a lot of spin on the ball, then I'm going to be finding it very difficult to get close to that pin. It's going to land up near the pin and then spin back to the middle of the green or even the front of the green. So the sorts of pins that you want to achieve a lot of spin on are ones tucked behind bunkers and front pins like we have here. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please smash that like button and please comment below. We'd love to hear from you. What shot are you struggling with out on the golf course? We'd love to help you. So regarding spinning your wedges into these greens, then the main advice that I have is try to get as good clean contact as you can and try to predict how much the ball's going to roll forward or spin backwards depending on the conditions, so that you can then pick the right club accordingly, land in the right part of the green accordingly, and get as close as possible to that pin for your possible birdie or par save. We'll be back next week. Are you the best golfer you can be?